All right, so this is Dylan. He's gonna let me ride his 2024 YZ250F. This is the anniversary edition. Little backstory. This is actually the bike I was gonna get, but Dylan, your handlebars are bent, dude.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude. What is this?
Probably when he wrecked one. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're pretty bad. We can fix that, man.
Try that again. All right, a lot better. Just want to clarify that was not Phoenix handlebars fault, that was Dylan's fault. But so like I was saying, backstory, I almost bought this bike, but this bike came out in 2024. I had the previous gen Yamaha YZ250, which is arguably the best 250 ever. Absolutely love that bike, but that bike was clapped. I had like 200 hours on it, and I wanted a new bike and I wanted to wait on this one, but it was 2022. I knew 2023 they were not going to update it, so I didn't want to buy the same bike. So that's why I ended up getting my KTM, and I love my KTM. I haven't had the privilege to ride these things. I've heard a lot of good things about these bikes, so I'm excited to check it out. We'll see. Thankfully we're at the cut, and I know this track better than any other track, so I feel like I can really get a good measure of how this bike handles and stuff. So it is the anniversary edition. He obviously changed the plastics out, put these black plastics on. It has a seat cover, sharp foot peg mounts, which I'm grateful for because I absolutely love these foot peg mounts. Phoenix handlebars, shout out Phoenix handlebars, go check them out. I have to get my code renewed, so I can't give a code right now. I got to get it renewed, but appreciate Dylan letting me ride it. And Dylan's gonna take the old KTM out. You're gonna take the old KTM out. I'm gonna let these guys get ahead. Alright, so I don't want to waste your guys' time with you watching video clips of me riding and then me talking, so I'm just going to do what I usually do when I ride bikes. I'm just going to do a voiceover and kind of share my thoughts and opinions as the clip goes in the background. So I have a bullet list of all my notes from riding this bike, and we're just going to go through them one by one. First off, I just want to say this is the 2024 YZ250F. I know in 2025 they actually updated a couple things like the foot peg mounts. I think they did a little bit with the suspension. But this is a 2024. Real quick, all the components that Dylan has put on this: he's put the Phoenix handlebars on, he's put ODI lock-on grips on, arc levers, the titanium Raptor foot pegs, and he obviously changed the graphics and plastics. This was the anniversary edition, so it was the really beautiful all white with the purple accents, and he just went with this black and purple color combo. But we're just going to start off right off the bat. The first note, and this is the first note that I think anybody has when they ride these Yamaha 250Fs, is this bike is stupidly loud. With the motor being a complete 180 and the airbox up front, this motor, it just screams. I have the 60 ATR3 helmet, and it's one of the most vented helmets on the market right now. And with that being said, it made this bike so loud. If you have one of these bikes, I probably would recommend earplugs. I can't imagine it's good for your ears. But It is loud. Another thing is this bike loves to exit corners. What I mean by that is, yeah, going in right here, probably not the best, but right here when you're at the exit, just getting on the throttle, it is one of the best feelings I've ever had on a dirt bike. I just love the way that back wheel will kind of hook into the rut, and then obviously you have the loudness of it just making it scream. It was so funny. Just I loved cornering this bike because of the exit of the corner. The entry was the chassis was a little rigid and a little weird, and I'm going to talk about that here in a couple minutes. But just leaving the corners on this bike was so much fun. This corner down here at the bottom of this hill is a perfect example. Um, just right here when you get to this hook and you just leave the bike, just felt so good. It was exciting. Um, but with that being said, the Yamaha motor, it's a very bottom torquey motor. I think Dylan had the Chris Kiefer mapping on it. So with the motor like that, you have to shift a lot. I was shifting this bike a lot more than I shift my KTM. Um, I'm the type of person, I don't really like to ride in high RPMs. I like to kind of lug bikes more and ride in the low RPMs. So with that being said, I was shifting a lot because I don't really like to scream my bikes out. For me, I think I love motors too much, and when you scream a bike, I just feel like you're destroying the motor. Is that always the case? No, but that's the way I ride. So that's probably why I'm not the best Yamaha rider, because these Yamahas, they love to scream. Um, but earlier we talked about the chassis. I do think this chassis is a little bit more rigid than the previous generation. I'm one of those people, it's hard for me to explain. I'm not going to claim to be the best tester ever. I'm literally just a weekend warrior vet rider. But it just didn't feel like it was flexing. It felt stiff at times, and it was just a little weird. I don't know if it's with the aluminum frame or what, but just it felt rigid. It didn't feel like it was really flexing and kind of absorbing the contact. Now, when I'm talking about the chassis, the suspension, however, oh my gosh, it's so good. I'm honestly probably looking at a spring conversion now for my bike, just because of how good the plush the suspension is. It almost felt like the chassis and the suspension were fighting each other. The suspension was like, man, let's just soak this in, and the chassis was like, no, let's not. It's so good. I do make a couple suspension changes. That's what you're watching right here. I adjusted the rebound a little bit. I was getting a little pumped up a little bit quicker. This is stock suspension. I ride suspension that's catered for me and set for my body weight. So I did get a little pumped up more on this, but when you talk about arm pump, I think that's a suspension thing. I don't really think that's a bike thing. Um, the bike does vibrate. I've noticed that with all the Japanese manufacturers compared to the Austrians, they just vibrate. I don't know if it's the components, what it is within it. You just notice a vibration when you're on the bike. It's typically one of those things, I notice it on startup, and then when it's time to actually start riding, it goes away, and I don't even really notice those vibrations. Um, Now let's talk about the cockpit. The previous generation YZs, what made them so unique and special, I think, was the cockpit. It was just notorious for people going, man, this bike is fat. And it was one of those things where, yeah, we all said the bike was fat, but no one could actually say how that was a negative. I was actually a firm believer. I think the fatter cockpit actually made the bike better, because you had you were able to grip the bike easier because of it being fatter. There was a greater surface area. And I was actually the firm believer. I liked it. I liked the fat cockpit. It was so funny. People would just be like, yeah, the bike, they're so fat, they're so fat, they're so fat. But no one could actually say how it was a negative for the bike. And I was the same way. I'm like, holy cow, this bike's fat. But I was the firm believer that was what kind of made the Yamahas unique. And I feel like they kind of lost that. The cockpit is a lot slimmer. I actually think it's slimmer than my KTM. And I'm a little bummed on that change. I'll be honest. I really liked it. Maybe some people don't. They think the slimmer cockpit, it's easier to grip and maneuver around. I was just kind of a firm believer. Yeah, it was fat, but it was easier to grip. So with that being said, it could be a good or bad. I don't know. I think it just depends on the type of person. For me, I'm gonna say it's a bad. I miss it. I think that's what made the Yamaha unique, and I think it lost a little bit of that. But to each person they're on. With that being said, who would I recommend this bike for? I wouldn't recommend this bike to a beginner rider. It was funny. I was talking with Dylan, and I didn't even know if he was picking this up. He was riding my KTM, and Dylan is a very beginner rider. He just started riding. This is his dirt bike ever, so he's obviously in the growing pain stages of trying to figure out jumping in ruts and corners. And we were talking. I was trying all day to get him to hit some jumps and kind of work up that courage, and it was kind of obvious he was like not there. But when he got done riding my bike, he was like, dude, I was so tempted to hit some jumps on your bike and hit this and send that. I think the reason being is I think the KTMs and the Austrian bikes are a little more beginner friendly, as in they're not as aggressive. You don't have to ride them harder. They have a very plush just throttle pull, and they can just hang out in second and third gear a little bit better. So just picking up on that, I was kind of like, I don't think this bike is that good for beginners. And even noticing that for myself, this bike wants to wheelie. It wants to wheelie out of corners. It loves that low RPMs and riding in there. So if you're a beginner rider, like this is your first dirt bike ever, I honestly wouldn't maybe recommend the Yamaha. I would say maybe go the Austrian route, or if you want to save money, possibly go the KX route. I haven't gotten to ride one of the new KXs, but I have ridden them in the past, and I always notice that they're just a little more tamed down. With that being also said, though, if you're a pro and you're a fast rider and you love screaming your dirt bike, this is the most perfect dirt bike for you. I can't make that up. This bike loves to be screamed, just loves to just be in that high RPM state. So that's who I think the target audience for these bikes need to be. With that being said, I guess the question is, do I think this bike is better than the previous generation? I keep referring back to previous generation, and the reason I do that is because I mean, like I said in the beginning of the video, that is arguably the greatest 250F ever produced. It dominated the pro ranks with Star Racing Yamaha, and it dominated pretty much every 250 shootout for 3-4 years straight. I'm gonna go and say no. I think the previous generation is better. I think it's better because it's unique. I think Yamaha went away from their uniqueness with this generation. But with that being said, this by no means is a bad bike. It's just in a hard area because it's following one of the greatest 250s ever. I also know some people are going to ask, well, would you take this bike over your KTM? I don't like that question because I ride my KTM every weekend. I have 60 hours on it. I'm heavily biased towards that bike. I love that bike. So I'm just going to go back and say it just depends on the type of rider you are, like I was talking about earlier. Some people may be wondering, what was I faster on? It was funny watching these videos back. I have some GoPro clips of my KTM as well. I was watching the Yamaha and I was like, holy cow, I'm hauling butt. I'm definitely faster on the Yamaha. I think part of that is just how loud this bike is and how much it screams. It kind of exaggerates that and makes it appear faster. I was about half a second slower. My lap times were about 108s, and on the Yamaha they're about 108.5s. I didn't track as many laps, so maybe there is some slight difference there. But for anyone wondering that, I was a little bit faster on my bike, but that is to be expected because it's my bike and it's catered to me. But I'm going to let the rest of this video play out. Nothing interesting. There's Dylan right now on that beautiful KTM. And I appreciate you guys watching this video. Hopefully these things make sense. And hopefully for you regular, normal guys, weekend warriors like me, you can get a better idea of these bikes. Thank you, Dylan, for letting me ride it. I've been super excited to ride one of these bikes. This is one of the most talked about bikes right now on the market. So it was pretty cool to get caught up and be able to ride one. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
kill switch? Oh, it's on the other side.
How'd that feel, man?
Felt good. I had to adjust your rebound. It was a lot of...
That's fine. You know what I mean? I don't be hitting jumps like that, so.
It was just a lot of times when I was going in the corners, I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
But that was good.